All right. Hello, 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 everybody. It's Art Stream Day, Art Thursday, everybody's favorite stuff. But this may be changing soon, actually. Not soon as in like within the next week or so, but there is changes coming eventually. But I'm going to get into a little bit about what we'll be doing here today, and we'll go from there. I talked about the lore of Edorwill last Thursday. This is a world that I have spent quite a lot of time with and in and learning about. And it is basically almost a decade old, or is a decade old, depending on how long ago you think about it. We are today I'm going to be talking with you guys as I go through the symbology and discuss the final imagery of the gods themselves, i.e., religious symbology. What makes them what images are they most commonly associated with, and then what is the most prominent and visual symbol that represents you as one of the followers of this particular god. But that's going to be the last thing because symbology is hard. So let's get right into it, shall we? Ta-da! We're back on the world map. We're back on the marks of where each god sort of exists. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. So, because of just how everything goes, basic order of discussion is the gods and how they were born. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we'll be going that way through the imagery and the iconography before settling into what followers/worshippers of said entity use to mark themselves as members of that particular faith. You probably unknowingly know what I'm talking about, like, you know what that is. It's just a small doodad because religion is important to a lot of people. So, we'll be starting where everything on Edorwill started, with the tree. Which I'm just going to draw in gold because in my head it's got gold leaves. And I'm just sort of drawing a little tree shape here. Just to sort of keep that there. Now, like I stated last week, this is basically Tree of Life. It gave life to literally every single one of these gods here. The only god it didn't give life to is itself. And it represents growth and change and is the only thing capable of turning thing is into immortals, basically. I'll get more into that in another time. But so, what this is commonly associated with is beginning, life, growth, and usually the color yellow or gold. We'll just do gold over here, gold or yellow. And the rest of the gods. In all essence, because trees like this in our world are often used as their own symbol, it's probable that this is also the same way, meaning that instead of like you're associated with like flowers or whatever, it's just the religious iconography for it would be more like a tree, a branch, something that sort of represents what it is. You probably have seen symbols similar to what I'm drawing now. The Celtic people have their own sort of take on the Tree of Life that looks more or less like that. I believe it's the Celtic, but it could be just any number of religious or quasi spiritual or whatever you want to call it. But this is basically what I'm thinking that the first god of Etterwill, the tree, is of a similar nature to that, usually using yellow or gold as its primary colors, because that's important in the long run of things, that it's actually associated with. So we'll say that that's good. So then we'll come over here to Oma. Now, Oma is one of the people who more or less reside in the northern lands. She is usually the patron of the area around the big old tree. And I know I didn't point this out, but has either what could be a tattoo or a birthmark of the tree itself on her, as well as other tattoos and markings that exist on her person. Now, because Oma exists as a northernmost entity and is also taken the form of the oldest god, we have to go basically through what makes her her. So I'm just gonna pick a nice green and we're just gonna go through it. So Oma as a god was wonder. both wondering, inquisitiveness, and wonder as in, wow, look at how wonderful this place is. I'm astonished. Because Oma has also taken on a more, I'm going to say elder appearance. We're also going to say that she's likely associated with wisdom, because that's usually a thing. She is a shapeshifter. All of these forms are Oma. She always takes the form of a white animal, spiritualistically, and or an old woman. The only thing that all these animals have in common with Oma is the tree shape on the forehead and the eyes that are too wise for anything else. So we're going to say fluidity and change, probably. And I'm not talking like water fluidity. Some of these gods are going to have overlapping thought patterns for their icons, for their symbols, for what they represent. Oma is also seen tending to the tree, keeping it safe from poachers, from people who want to become immortal by stealing pieces of it, etc., etc. So she's probably also visualized as either a gardener or a guardian. I'm spelling things wrong. I'm sorry. You're going to have to deal with it. I don't know how to spell things, and I don't have time to fight grammar right now. Now, with Oma, color is a challenge because I believe initially what this was supposed to represent was something similar to the Northern Lights. But Oma also dresses in bright and warm colors. Colors that usually symbolize life and vibe and like bright things. But doing that she can have multiple colors. I'm not saying that that's wrong. What I'm saying is that some of these colors overlap with other gods, specifically the blues and the purples and the oranges there. But a lot of these gods don't necessarily have one color, the exceptions being the tree over here, and probably him or her or them down there, aka life and death. So I don't necessarily have a color picked out for Oma yet. Now, we could go with, again, something like that for Oma, but that's not what we're going to do. Oma probably is the reason this is the symbol, more or less, i.e., the first god, the first follower of Big Tree. tree of life. There's a connection there between these two that the other gods sort of vaguely have to the tree. These two were technically born from the tree, but it wasn't their sole godly entity. No, that would be, they have more connection to Oma than to the tree. Tinatin might have had more connection to the tree if he wasn't already born with all of his instincts intact. These two owe more to him and to Tayasa for being a messy eater than any of the other gods. This one has a connection to this, but it's more of a, this is my big older sibling energy. So we are probably going to try and keep that silhouette. I.e., Oma's probably going to try and keep so there's a couple of ways I can think about going around this. We could do black and white layering shapes, i.e., this one's black, this one's white, this one's black, or whatever color Oma is, to give a sort of layered silhouette. Or we could try to figure out No, I think I'm going to go with that first one. That one's a good idea. So, start probably with the person shape. Person shape, good shape. Alright, now we're just going to use this green because this green is good. And we'll just do that. Person shape. And then yeah, then we'll probably do maybe like bear shape. And then we'll do like owl shape. Basically have it be sort of layered like that as symbology goes. I like that. That's fun and dynamic, and I'm just gonna turn this white so that I can see it clearer. Or maybe instead of that one, we'll do that yellow. Probably not. Don't necessarily like that. We'll We'll just go with white for now. If I change my mind, it can always be changed later. So that's 2. Now, this is one where it's going to get complicated. Just because of associations. So, this is both a sun god and a god of creativity. But they were also born from the flower of every color, so they're also associated with color. Which is part of the reason why they reside in a jungle area. And as the god of Jahara, a city of craftsmen, the whole country of craftsfolk. So, there's some interesting associations already off the bat. Tyasa is the first god that was made by me, so I have some personal associations with it. It's also theoretically was a self-insert that has been added to as time has gone on. So there's some me aspects to this that aren't gonna be shaken, not by me at least. So let's see if we can think more on this. Mainly because we got at least 5 for the other 2, so we gotta make sure we got at least 5 for everybody else. It's gonna be easier for some than others, and this one's gonna be one of the harder ones because it's difficult to look at yourself, even when it's not necessarily you. When it's a thing that you associate with yourself, then it's kind of hard to shake that. So there's the sun aspect. There's also likely a light aspect, both in the literal interpretation of the sun equals light, but also gentle mood of a light disposition. Uh, let's see. Let's see. I may have to come back to this again later, but at the moment, let's just draw down what could theoretically be main visual guides to breaking down this particular entity. There are the wings, which are kind of interesting. There's the fact that there are symbols on the wings, both this and I believe that was too close, so I'm going to have to move this down. That's still too close because I drew the arc too high. and something like this. You've got the curled horns, i.e., you've got the horn symbology as well, which looks more like that. All of these could be used to break down into a singular symbol, like what I'm doing with these. Especially since we're going to probably put the whole color stream on it. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Because God of creativity and color. It's kind of important. They're also probably seen as a craftsman. Craftsman. Putting that in air quotes because not necessarily either human nor masculine. And just from the horns and claws and teeth and scales, they're probably also seen as just knowing that with this light personality thought, they're probably also seen as a defender. So then we come back over here to this little collection of symbology. And I had been using just this as a symbol for all of this. But looking at stuff over here, especially it could be good. Could be what you want to do. It's simple enough to be easily remembered. Which is probably why I went with it in the first place. But it does sort of follow some limitations. And it's probably going to stay the same, mainly because I'm me. And that's kind of just what happens. So we got this, right? Knowing Jahara, like I do, they're more likely to make something like this. Let me see if I can get this the right way. Yeah. That's more what I was thinking. And doing something like this. I'm just going to do this real quick. Yep, that was right over it. Gotta try and get this right. Because it's important to me specifically. Okay, we'll just do that then. Basically something like that. With, I'm just gonna automatically go around it, and we're gonna shift till we find the goldy color. And it would probably be something sort of like that. But since we're just doing basic symbology, and this is more or less what the singular symbol is, we're just gonna go with that. We're gonna go with that. And we're just gonna make sure that it's nice and filled in, because I'm a stickler for that kind of thing. I like no gaps. It would be more symmetrical than just me freehanding it. But now we're on to water. Okay, so water, the moon. Didn't mention this before, but I'm going to mention it now. Moon sees the future. Moon person sees the future, reads omens. It's natural. It falls within the realm of what's true and what's false with the moon. Moons are also commonly associated with seers. It's just how it is. So we got that. We got some aspect of change here as well, both in size, both in species. Definitely associated with crows and ravens and such. Before this guy even got a hold of him, she had him. Sirandry. This is my sibling, my god sibling. It's also Fairy. For those who don't know, Fairy is my IRL sibling. Very. So, as I go and I look at this, definitely connotations with the cool colors, specifically blue and purple. Now, there's a lot of things that we could do here. I'm just going to pull out symbology again of what exactly seems to be common features on Surendri, which we're going to say big ol' moon disk. I'm specifically doing this so that people know that it's a moon disk and not. You can even see it here on the crow. It follows the phases of the moon, her special little halo. She's got wings, but mostly feather ears and crow association wings when they're feathered. But she also has connotation with dragonfly wings and water. And, drippy, flowy fabric. So to make a symbol, we're going to start an actual circle. Now, it is a moon disk, so I do have to make sure that that is visible. But I could do it split down the middle. Easily like this. And we could do... I don't like that. But we could do... I'm trying my best here. Something like that on this side. I actually need to move this real quick. See if I can get this. Do something like that instead. The balance is a little bit off, so I'm going to make it balanced quickly. By using white, we'll take this and we'll pull it over here so that we got that. And I need that over there. Okay. And then we come back to this and we go to the freehand and we go chop. So it's more like that instead. But I don't necessarily think that's still either correct. Okay. Okay. Let's see. It still doesn't feel correct, but I think that's because it's so spread out. So I'm gonna try something else. And since Fairy's in the chat, she can tell me if she hates it or not. Since this is theoretically a religion that I made for my sister about my sister. So, Fairy, is that good or do you hate it? Or does it need something else? Maybe I should do sleepy eyes. Fairy, aren't you paying attention? What do you think? Is that good or do you want something changed? Personally, I think it's very. I think it's cute. Which is not something I was expecting to say. What do you mean by that, Fairy? Do you want a little crown? Is that what you're saying? You want a little crown? Alright, let's go to this layer. We'll pull it under. We'll just like clear it. Sort of make. Yeah, it may not fit with the other shapes, but it's not necessarily meant to, is sort of what I'm thinking about. But I will be honest, I kind of like this just because it sort of gives raindrop feel. You know? Do you like that? Is that what you were looking for? Huh, Fairy? Is that what you like? Oh, I want this to have eyelashes. Mainly because it's cute. And it deserves it. Well, that's because it's the moon disk. It's sort of a representation of light and dark aspects. You know, because there is a split moon in existence. So you want me to go more Renaissance-y with it? Make it more of a Venetian mask than a full split? Can do. This is the only person who can tell me to put a fine point on it, people. Because she's the bee in my bonnet. Like that? Picky, 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 picky. If you can't tell, I love my sister. Hence why I made a whole god just for her. Put all of her favorite things in it. And no, I'm not kidding. Like, oh, did you want the purple to be the more moon shape, or how much more, Fairy? Like, like that much more? You want me to cover the eye but with a crescent shape? Like that? Okay. You can communicate. Basically, what that just says to me is, I liked your initial design. I just want the curve to be more prevalent so that it feels more like the moon to me specifically, which I can deal with. Like that? You like that little? That's what your priests and priestesses wear on their cloaks and stuff. Probably made of lapis lazuli or whatever. Wet rocks. So it sort of also just sort of reflects the art style. You act like they embroider it, Fairy, and not like tie dye things. I'm pretty sure your priests wear tie dye robes because tie dye is water dyeing. Also, I've drawn your guys' clerical stuff before. It just sort of, it's interesting. Like, you got sketchy drawing of actual entity versus sort of reminds me of both caveman art and Native American art, to Jahara, who has a high emphasis on marking one's progress through tattoos, and this lady covered in fancy embroidery, whom I will always tease. So now we're gonna move on to Tinatin. Tinatin is associated with earth, obviously animals. There's an emphasis on ferocity. I'm pretty sure I spelled that completely wrong. Even though he himself is a gentle being. Um, Depending on when you come in, there's also some aspect of loss to him, just because of this whole canyon cut into his body, etc. Uh, as a chimera, he's many things in one. So he does sort of have that sort of connection to the jack of all trades, master of none. He is actually a sculptor. And many wonder who taught who that particular art form between these two gods here. Because this one's creativity, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she created all of the art forms. Just means she sort of put the thought process out there. But Tinatin is a sculptor. There's also, just because of the wings and things, and the fact that it doesn't seem like he's bound in any one particular movement situation, he does have an element of freedom to him. I would say that the wings are probably a very important part of the religious iconography with him. Wings and horns and teeth and claws. So we're going to try really hard up here to give this sort of what they see him as, sort of entity wise. It's not necessarily the nicest thing in the whole world. Because they don't really get to know him at all. But I will say that this is probably an accurate representation of what they feel for the god of beasts. We're just not gonna worry about that. Yeah, we'll just sort of like take this, we'll copy and paste it, we'll just. Okay. Let's see if we can get all of this closed up. Just so that I can get some color on this bad boy. Even though he's not bad. He is in fact a very good boy. Alright, invert. He's associated with earth tones, so it's more likely that you use earth tones to get it to be accurate, with the couple exceptions being the bright blue that can be found in nature and red. But I don't necessarily think that people will actually do him justice. I mean, there's a whole section of their history that they got wrong because of how they felt about him. And they thought that he somehow preferred carnivores to plant eaters, which isn't accurate at all. But I do think I need to go back, and I do think I need to add the blue that he's got, because it is one of the prominent colors for him. But we'll probably tone it down to be more, yeah, to be more muddy and less true clear. But yeah, I think that's an accurate representation of symbology there, which is definitely interesting, especially for being Tinatin. Tinatin is so misunderstood, but I think that the messy lines actually help here. It sort of reminds me of like people drawing in the dirt what they thought their god looked like. This guy. This guy. Mappin is associated with me with orange. He's a tiger-ish being. He's associated with travelers, roads, secret. Well, no, not secrets. That's his sister. He's associated with being too open, actually. He's associated with the the openly, like, disabled. He has legs that are made of wood for a reason. Uh, Specifically for him, it's the, like, amputees or people who use prosthetics. And, like, ADHD in all its forms, because this man can zone out like nobody's business. He's also associated with speed, as in movement speed. Racers and competitions. He's actually one of the easiest ones for me to think about, because he himself is like my brain going, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make you a superhero. That's the speedster, because I love speedster superheroes. But then we're gonna make him actively disabled and give him a tail and horns, because that's fun. Yeah, let's go with that. That's a good idea. So he's also associated with wind. That's sort of him in a nutshell. So for me, there's two very prominent symbols for him, which are his horn and his weird cloudy stuff. So he's known as the Path Maker. He's like constantly bouncing around the world. So his marks, his symbols, mark safe places, safe passageways, and his churches are actually like hostels, hotels, places for people to stay. And I would go with that, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it's right. Which is why he's so hard to deal with. Because he's really not easy. I could do the fact that his tail is just like this constantly. But I don't really know how to go about making a symbol for him. Because he's hard to really get right. And I did forget to mention, I think, but he's made of like complementary colors. So while he's mostly orange, his horn is like a blue crystal substance, and his hair is definitely tinged with teal at the ends. Because he's just like that. He is. Mm. I don't know. So we'll come back to him in a second. Mainly because I feel like his sister's easier for me. She's secrets, mysteries, puzzles. She's also the solutions. She's magic, often often credited as being the god of magic, even though it's not necessarily just a thing for her. She's also strongly associated with ghosts, just because of where she chose to settle down, which is the Ghost Flame Desert. And in case you weren't here for the last week, that literally does not show you mirages of oases in the desert, but instead allows the ghosts that have died in it or will to come back so long as they have unfinished business. She's also associated with drapes and silk. Just because of how dang much she uses to really conceal her appearance on deserts. She's actually fairly easy to imagine a symbol for. At least for me. It might be two of those, it might be one of those. And then, sort of like those black bars. Yeah, I think I'll do two of them. Why not? It's good. As associated with mysteries. This is actually often, it's often just this part right here. That's the symbol. And if you're a part of the location, the fabric that you pin to become the drape here will be, in essence, whatever fabric you want to use. And there's usually lights in the eyes to just sort of give that effect. Didn't fill it in all the way. How did I not do that? I'm using just basically this dark purple to show you that she's more associated with the darker colors than she is with lighter colors, except for with the eyes. That's just about the only place. So that would be Nimat's symbol. Watching you. Which amuses me greatly because, yet again, it's sort of art style differences per each region they're from. This is often made of glass because this is the glasswork capital of this universe. The glass bells and things that they make keep ghosts at bay. Nimat's brother is a traveler. He's a himbo traveler. So maybe instead of trying to not it's this. So I'm just gonna go on top of it for a second. And I'm turning off both of these layers just so that I can do something thoughtful. Let's see. Here, here, here. Which makes sense to me. This is basically his whole what he did after becoming a god, how he ran around the entire world wearing his legs down till they were gone. Not I'm not making that up. Well, I am because it's my world, my universe. But that is the story of his inception into godhood. Him and his sister. And if I use this as a basis, still doesn't feel right. It's a little disappointing. It's really hard. Uh, let's see if I can figure this out. Map. Flat piece of paper. But it's basically, I'm trying to design something that people would hang to let people know that this is a safe spot for travelers, wayward folk. This is a place of the gods, and I'm not really sure how to go about it. Hmm. Nope, still not that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really gotta think about that. Alright, so instead, I guess we'll come back over here and we'll talk about the endings, death, the movement, of time, definitely associates with black and gray. And is probably associated with mushrooms and scavengers and other things of that particular nature, things that are aids to death. Honestly, this one has another strong idea in my head. It is the eighth god, so I feel like there's some importance placed on that for people. So I'm using the hourglass motif, but I'm also doing their strange hand atop it. Because not only do they have a hand in death, they're preventing people from living forever. They're in charge of this whole death operation here. This is probably commonly engraved on pocket watches for those who are wish dealers. They often have places to be, people to see, things to do, and so they often have timepieces on them. And since this is a representation of the movement of time, since everybody dies according to time moving forward, basically. This is probably the symbology for this guy, which is kind of sick. It's cool. It's cool as heck. I feel like they might have been a callback with yellow there, but I don't necessarily know. Putting that back up so that I can move these images into place, but I gotta figure out this guy. Theoretically, I could look at Maori art and decide based off of that, but that doesn't fit with the rest of it. So I'm just gonna explain a little bit about this. These guys are far more feudal Europe than you'd initially assume. There's a whole knights and mages and kings training academy. People are associated to different households and different families. Almost all of them claim to have had at least some connection to him, and they're not wrong. The reason people have animal features is because this dude is kind of free with love. So theoretically, I could get back into this sort of. That might be a good way of doing it. We get this profile. Let's get this profile correct, or as correct as I want to get it. And I'm sort of just doing a basic image, and then we'll just sort of something like I don't know, maybe not that, but like something to add down here. You know, making sure to take into account the sort of basic art style that I'm trying for sort of worked in this respect. because then you get sort of what you were asking for. In this case, I was taking thoughts from tavern signs. Which sort of gives this nice sort of rest sign. Like, oh, I know what that sign means. That sign means good food. That sign means travelers welcome, or whatever. And this actually feels accurate to his sort of lore and world building. Something happened there. I didn't mean to do that. I'm just after this. And then shrinking it a little bit. So it's not as... Oh, you know what? It's fine. The same size. And we turn off that. We could probably erase the words, but I don't necessarily want to. This particular moment in time, I'm just gonna move these images to where they're supposed to be, like... That's Van Guren. That's where Van Guren is. Technically, well, that is mostly in Jahara. That's Jahara. You need to be a little bit bigger. You're about at the capital, but I'm just going to move you more further into your location. You're fine. You're fine. You need to be moved a little bit inward, probably just like right about there. I'm just sort of putting you there within your boundaries. And that's fine off to the side so that it doesn't get confused for the actual tree. So then there you have it. Jahara, it's regions, and it's symbology, and rather what the gods themselves used to identify their places, their people, and their sort of realms. Feel like this was productive. I think since we're past my usual like endpoint or what I usually schedule for my endpoint, we're just gonna call it there, which sounds good to me. So, Thank you guys for showing up. I greatly appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for hearing me talk and talk about my world that I made up, and for those who had input, thank you for your input. I appreciate all of you guys for showing up. I have a Ko-fi link in my description here on Twitch and on my YouTube channel, which is all my old streams. It's Star Sailor 7 Stream Archive, if you want to find us on YouTube. The Ko-fi goal at the moment is to save up to buy a new laptop so that I could play Minecraft with my friends for the very first time ever. I don't know anything about Minecraft other than what's on, like, YouTube. Thank you for showing up. Thanks for having fun with me. I will see you on Tuesday of next week for Pokemon Mystery Dungeons, where we get back into the swing of exploring as a Piplup. I will see you all later. Have an excellent day. Bye.